Good morning to you all. Welcome to historic Convocation Hall in the College Building. This is the perfect site for today's event. When you reflect upon the history of this building, the history of this place in the life of the university, and when you reflect upon the enormous significance of the event that you will be witnessing, we all will be privileged to witness today, this is truly the perfect location. It is a spectacular day, featuring a major national award for one of our most distinguished faculty members, who is also one of Canada's greatest historians. I'm very pleased to welcome a senior member of the SSHRC team, Vice President of Research Capacity, Brent Herbert Copley. Welcome to Saskatoon. Welcome to the University of Saskatchewan. SSHRC is, of course, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council. It is our lead national agency in supporting and inspiring research in the humanities and social sciences. Dr. Herbert Copley, appropriately, is of that tradition, himself a political scientist, a graduate of the University of Western Ontario with an MA and PhD from Carleton, who has had an outstanding background with the International Development Research Centre and the North-South Institute. He is a successful researcher in the areas of innovation and the links between research, public policy, and public debate. Brent, may I invite you to come to the podium?
Well, thank you very much, Peter. Colleagues, distinguished guests, I really am delighted to be here today as we celebrate research excellence in the social sciences and humanities. And as Peter said, it's particularly fitting that we're here in this building, which, as I understand, has a cornerstone that was laid by Wilfrid Laurier about 100 years ago. It served many purposes at the university over that 100 years, but I think it's also always represented that tradition of excellence at the university. So very fitting that we gather here for this event today. C'est une occasion aujourd'hui de souligner la recherche exceptionnelle et d'honorer les chercheurs qui contribuent de façon importante au milieu universitaire et à la société dans son ensemble. SSHRC is recognizing 4 award winners today, and I want to take this opportunity to congratulate all of the award winners, as well as thanking the members of our selection committee that worked so hard in moving this process forward. But we're here, of course, today particularly to honor our gold medal winner. The gold medal exemplifies SSHRC's core mission and values. As Peter has said, SSHRC is the federal agency that promotes and supports post-secondary research and research training in the humanities and social sciences. Through its programs and policies, SSHRC enables the highest levels of research excellence in Canada. It facilitates knowledge sharing and collaboration across research disciplines, across institutions, and across all sectors of society. More than ever, we're convinced that knowledge and understanding about people in the past and the present are needed to develop prosperous, just, and resilient societies. SSHRC-supported research in the social sciences and humanities enhances our understanding of key issues that contribute to the building of successful societies in our rapidly changing century. This research raises profound questions about who we are as human beings, about what we need in order to thrive in complex and challenging times, and about where we're headed in the new millennium. Our past gold medal winners reflect the caliber of excellence and the kinds of impacts that are associated with this award, and I just want to take a few minutes to talk about some of those winners. One of the world's most preeminent philosophers, a Canadian icon really, McGill University's Charles Taylor was the first gold medal recipient in 2003. He's recognized internationally as an important voice in the 21st century debate about how diverse peoples can live together successfully in peace and security. The 2004 gold medal winner was Alex Mikolos of the University of Northern British Columbia. He's dedicated his academic career to bettering the human condition through research on the quality of life. And I think it's significant that when apartheid ended in South Africa, the new South African government turned to Mikolos for help in measuring and improving its citizens' quality of life. Juriste renommé, André Lajoie de l'Université de Montréal a reçu la médaille d'or du CRSH en 2006. Depuis plus de 40 ans, Madame Lajoie apporte d'importantes contributions au domaine de droit constitutionnel, administratif et autochtone. Ses ouvrages sont connus partout dans le monde et surtout dans les pays où la diversité culturelle est très importante. University of Toronto philosopher Ian Hacking was the 2008 winner. His work has transformed how we think about topics ranging from statistical inference and entrepreneurship to adult education. Hacking has since gone on to have a seat at Le Collège de France and to win the Holberg Award. Today I have the great pleasure of awarding SSHRC's highest research honor, the SSHRC Gold Medal for Achievement in Research for 2010, to University of Saskatchewan historian and Canada Research Chair in Native-newcomer Relations, Professor Jim Miller. I know that all of you know Jim better than I do, but let me take a few minutes to talk about some of Jim's achievements. For nearly 30 years, he's examined the relationship between Canada's Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal population, and has helped shape understanding of critical issues such as treaty rights and residential schools. His work has made important contributions to Canada's understanding of its history and its role in the present context. For example, his 1996 work, Shingwak's Vision, A History of Native Residential Schools, was the first history of residential schools in Canada. The book won an international award for the study of human rights and has been used by Aboriginal political leaders, public servants, journalists, and lawyers involved in resolving abuse claims. Professor Miller's expertise is regularly called on by the Indian Residential Schools Adjudication Secretariat, where he gives lectures on the history of residential schooling to adjudicators in training. He also serves on the Research Advisory Committee of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, which was established by the federal government in June 2008. Treaty rights is another area where Professor Miller has been influential, both inside and outside the university. Bounty and Benevolence, A History of Saskatchewan Treaties, which Miller co-authored in 2000, was based on research he did for the Saskatchewan Officer of the Treaty Commissioner. And in 2009, he published Compact, Contract, Covenant, Aboriginal Treaty Making in Canada, really the first comprehensive history of treaty making in Canada. Recognized as a masterful work of historical research and analysis, this book is being used in Canada as well as in other countries such as Australia and New Zealand to understand the historical foundation for relationships between Aboriginal peoples and governments. Professor Miller has put his extensive knowledge of treaty making to work outside academia as well, developing classroom materials on treaty rights for schools across Saskatchewan. Jim Miller really, I think, is an exemplar of the exceptional work that occurs here at the University of Saskatchewan in the humanities and social sciences. I'm told that the first history lecture from the department was delivered in a downtown office building in 1909, and that the history department now has gone on to become an important home for the discipline within Canada, a home to the Canadian Journal of History. When Shirley Spafford wrote a book called No Ordinary Academics about the Department of Economics and Political Science at the university, she may well have written about, I think, the entire college. Her examination of the faculty that turned a department in an isolated prairie university into a thriving intellectual community that would go on to nurture some of Canada's best mind speaks to the intellectual roots of this university and the important place that the humanities and social sciences have had in its development. I'm pleased to continue saluting that tradition and again to recognize Professor Jim Miller for his many and varied accomplishments.
May I now invite Dr. Miller to come to the stage and to join you, Brent, at the podium.
I think they want us to move more to the center. I think they do.
you have already experienced a Saskatoon tradition, the involuntary standing ovation. Chancellor Pezzer, President MacKinnon, Vice President Herbert Copley, colleagues and friends. When Chad Gaffield called me on November 19th and told me that I was going to be awarded the gold medal, I blurted out, "I demand a recount." The comment, perhaps a little inappropriate, expressed my incredulity, and incredulity was one of the two powerful emotions I felt when I got that phone call. The other emotion was gratitude. No one wins an honor like this by him or herself, and my being here is a result of countless contributions by people, institutions both inside and outside the University of Saskatchewan. It takes a department to raise a historian. I've been fortunate in working for over 40 years in a department that values research and supports its members as they pursue research projects. Colleagues critique one another's research grant applications, their draft chapters, even sometimes their monographs. For example, in my own case, Keith Carlson has saved me from many mistakes I would have otherwise made about British Columbian topics in particular. And when I was working on what became Lethal Legacy, my then colleague, Janice MacKinnon, was working on Minding the Public Purse. And we exchanged draft chapters and got together and discussed them regularly as we both worked our way through the manuscripts. It was a very helpful experience. And my colleague, Bill Wazer, has read a very large portion of my scholarly writing, much to its and my benefit. The Arts and Science Dean's Office has also been instrumental in my research during the past decade especially. Associate Dean Judith Rice Henderson looked after the nomination for the Canada Research Chair in 2000, and Vice Dean Peter Stoichev quarterbacked the renewal nomination in 2007. Receiving the Canada Research Chair has been very important in allowing me to pursue research very aggressively. And I also want to pay tribute and express my appreciation to Dean Joanne Dillon, who has been enormously supportive, encouraging, and enthusiastic about my research efforts. My college is fortunate in having leadership that promotes research the way these people do. At the campus level, there are a number of people and institutions to which I am also indebted. For historians, the library is our laboratory. And to have any success at all in conducting research, it's essential to have a good library with good librarians and a good research collection. Well, at the University of Saskatchewan, we are very fortunate in having a library with a good research collection, particularly in Canadian history. And what's perhaps more important, we have expert librarians who are knowledgeable, enthusiastic, and dedicated to helping the faculty realize as much as possible from those materials. For Canada Research Chairs at the U of S, Amit Shukla and the Innovative Programs Unit is a godsend. Amit and amazing staff such as Joanne Satarsky, who was of enormous benefit when I was trying to prepare my renewal for a chair nomination in 2007, people like Amit and Joanne are absolutely vital to the research enterprise, though they don't often get the publicity and the thanks that they should. Similarly, Alexandra Foster, our awards facilitator, was indispensable in my obtaining this award. A little more than a year ago, she and Bill Wazer took me for coffee and told me that they thought I should be nominated for the SSHRC Gold Medal. I assured them that it was a totally futile effort and they shouldn't bother based on my experience serving on the selection committee for the gold medal the first 2 years that it was awarded. They persisted, and eventually I said, fine, okay. If you want to waste your time and energy, be my guest. So thank you, Alexandra, and thank you, Bill, for wasting your time and effort on this futile effort. I'm very, very grateful to you for doing so. And after Alexandra secures recognition for our faculty, Catherine Warden and the expert promotions and communications team and research see to it that the wider world, as well as the campus, get to know about the accomplishments. Thank you, too, for all your work. I've also benefited from help, support, encouragement from the President's office over the years. George Ivany facilitated the research that Dr. Herbert Copley referred to on treaty making in Saskatchewan. Back in 1996, he saw to it that I would have time to participate in that research project with two other scholars that produced Bounty and Benevolence. And it was that experience, working on that piqued my interest in treaty making more generally and led eventually to the publication of a more comprehensive history of treaty making last year. The year after Dr. Ivany made it possible for me to participate in that research, the acting vice president academic called me one day to tell me that I was going to receive what would be my first recognition as a researcher, the University of Saskatchewan's Distinguished Researcher Award. I don't know if Peter MacKinnon will recall that telephone conversation, but I certainly do. And more to the point, as president since 1999, Peter has worked very hard to promote and enhance research intensiveness at the university. One could give many, many examples of his and his colleagues' hard work in this regard, but let me just cite one. The contribution of greater funding for grad studies has been a very important asset in furthering the research enterprise. It's a great personal pleasure for me to share this podium, this platform with Peter today, because I appreciate so much what he has done. Many people and institutions beyond this campus have also helped me get here this morning. As Marion Pearson, wife of Prime Minister Lester Pearson, once said, "Behind every successful man, there's a surprised woman." Well, the surprised woman behind me was Mary McDougall, to whom I was happily married for 38 plus years until her untimely death almost exactly 6 years ago today in December 2004. She supported me literally and figuratively through 4 years of graduate studies and then 34 plus years as a faculty member here. Mary had a keen intelligence united with a powerful intuition. And the combination made her simply the best problem solver I have ever known. It didn't matter what the challenge was, whether it was how do we get the family home from Tokyo while seeing as much of the world at a reasonable price as possible, or how do we design the renovation of the kitchen. It didn't matter. Mary was the one who would figure it out and come up with the plan. And she brought that same gift to the many lengthy conversations we had about my work, and including especially about my research. Whether it was at work, how to organize a chapter or a conference paper, or the outline of a monograph, or how to work out the details of an interpretation so that the analysis would be as comprehensive and persuasive as possible, she was simply indispensable to everything I did in research, as she was indeed to my entire existence. Someone else who can't be here this morning to be thanked in person is Maynard Cuisance. Maynard, when I first met him in 1990, was a young Soto student at this university. One morning in the autumn that year, he walked into my office, introduced himself, and said, "I understand you're working on residential schools." I said, "Yes, it was. Why do you ask?" Well, he said, "I went to a residential school. Would you like to talk to me?" I said, "Oh, yes, I would indeed." Maynard not only provided me with a wonderful interview, which I use frequently in Xinguang's vision, but he helped me secure a number of other very important interviews for that project. And in a couple of cases, he actually conducted the interview for me in another city. I think of Maynard as symbolizing all the many informants, native and non-native, whose contributions to my research have been absolutely vital to my work on residential schooling, reconciliation, treaties, and government policy in general. For some 14 years, the Office of the Treaty Commissioner has been instrumental in my research as well. In 1996, then Treaty Commissioner David Arnott invited me and two colleagues, as you've heard, to prepare a report on treaty making, and that turned into Bounty and Benevolence, and eventually into Compact, Contract, and Covenant. I also learned from working on what became teaching treaties in the classroom. And I've also had the benefit of working with Executive Director of the OTC, Harry LaFond, and the Education Director, Ken Horseman, as well as the current Treaty Commissioner, Bill McKnight. All those people have been influential in my work over the past 14 years. I want to conclude by thanking the agency that sponsors the gold medal, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. If it takes a department to raise a historian, it requires a granting council to allow the historian to do research. I have been very fortunate in the support I've had, not just from SSHRC, but in fact from SSHRC's predecessor, the Canada Council. Before 1978, it was the Canada Council that supported research in the humanities and social sciences. 3 years of my doctoral program was supported with the Canada Council Doctoral Fellowship. And my first 2 research grants were in fact Canada Council research grants. When SSHRC became the granting agency in 1978, I was in the first cohort of recipients of standard research grants. And I've been very fortunate between then and now in having a succession of standard research grants and strategic grants to support various research projects that I've engaged in. SSHRC uses money from the federal budget, in other words, from the tax-paying public, to support our research. And it uses peer review to ensure that the decisions it makes about whom to fund are conducted as fairly and efficiently as possible. Peer review is the gold standard of decision-making for agencies like SSHRC. And in my opinion, although I am biased, no doubt, SSHRC does it very, very well. Like many academic researchers, I would not have been able to accomplish even the tiniest portion of what, in fact, I've done without the support of SSHRC back since 1978. And I very much appreciate the fact that Brent Herbert Copley has made the effort to be with us this morning. From that too long recital, perhaps you understand now why one of the 2 strong emotions I felt on the morning of November 19th was gratitude for all the help I've had. That gratitude has not dissipated at all in the ensuing 4 weeks. In fact, I don't think it ever will. I also am still pretty much in disbelief about the news, actually. And in the time it took between the phone call from Chad Gaffield and this morning, I began to worry some days that, in fact, he was taking me up on my request for a recount. I'm really glad to find out that that's not the case this morning. So while I'm as grateful as ever and almost as much in disbelief as ever, I want to make one final thing clear. I'm no longer asking for a recount.
Thank you very much, Jim. Thank you, Brent. The gold medal, the Canada Research Chair, Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, and winner, as he told you 13 years ago, of our university's Distinguished Researcher Award. This is indeed today a memorable occasion in a memorable setting. With respect to your fellowship in the Royal Society of Canada, Jim, I understand that next year in 2011 you will be undertaking a national tour, a national speaking tour. That will begin in what month? And
probably September.
September, and where will it begin?
In Halifax.
We'll watch, that will be a cross-country speaking tour, and we will all anticipate that with great interest. This concludes this very, very special occasion, except for the fact that you are invited to remain here, remain with us to talk with and to congratulate our gold medal recipient and enjoy the refreshments. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.